Hi, I'm Andrea, and I wrote this book, and I also am reading it, sometimes with terrible accents. And I'm here today to do a little chapter 1 recap. In the event that you don't want to listen to the whole thing, you can just review the recap. And if something sounds interesting, you can always go back and listen to the entire section. Or, not. You can just consume the book through these recaps if it is preferable to you. So here we go. Chapter 1 recap. Essentially, there are 5 sections to this recap. Each one of those sections has its own individual video that you will see here on the YouTubes. Okay. So section 1, you are introduced to X and his quest. Okay. So there are 3 things that you should learn from this first section. First of all, it is the longest section of the chapter. It is 3,651 words out of the 6,922 words that are in the chapter. The other thing to note about this is that the chapter is the second longest chapter in the entire book. The longest chapter is the last one. So they're sort of bookended with as much information as possible to sort of set up the book and then end the book, of course. Okay. Here are the 3 things that we learn in chapter 1. Number 1, this planet does not have only humans on it. It has another species called the Naski. There are 5 species or subspecies that you should get familiar with. 1, the humans. Easy, that's us, okay? 2, Naski. They are the home planet's native population. When humans and Naski procreate, they make mortadels. Now, this is akin to a mule, okay? So when horses and donkeys fuck, they make a mule. When humans and Naski fuck, they make mortadels. Mortadels, like mules, are barren, okay? 4th is Alsaba. You find out in the last section that I read, the C section. C-section. Okay. You find out that the Alsaba are basically albino, okay? When Alsaba and humans fuck, they make viable offspring who also can have children, okay? So their kids live and they can have kids of their own. Those are called the neogenes. Those are the 5 things you got 5 species, subspecies that you got to know. Okay, the second thing you got to know is that there's this mortadel mystery. Mortadels aren't supposed to be able to have babies, but the forest claims that they got one who did. WTF. And X's job is to figure out how the fuck did that happen, because he's a translator and he is very good at getting into people's hearts and minds, not just translating their words. Okay. The third thing is X's dynamic in general. And this really sets up what is essentially the biggest existential question that we all have to wrestle with, which is, what's the fucking point of it all? What are we here for, right? So it's very obvious that the humans have fixated on their bloodline and their lineages for however long it is that they've been on this planet. And X is sort of like, well, so if you made me and you knew I was never going to be able to have children, what is my purpose here? What is it all for? So those are the big 3 things that you're supposed to learn in the first section. Minor point number 1 is that life expectancies are very different. It goes from 3 centuries, aka 300 years that the humans are living for, all the way down to the Naski, which is not explicitly spelled out yet, but X does mention that his mother only lived to 40. So you've got sort of 40 years of life expectancy in Naskis all the way to 300 in humans. So it's a big difference. It's not a main point, but it's a sub point, which will become a main point eventually. I'll give you that tip. Okay. Number 2 is that Ephraim is a fucking asshole, right? He's a big jerk, and you're supposed to get the spidey sense that maybe this is one of the villains in the tale. Okay, section 2. Now we have human extinction. This is kind of a reiteration section. So you are reiterating that Abraham's wife Abby dying, and then the other thing that it's supposed to reiterate to you is the difference in his relationship with X. Through the dialogue you see he's sort of short-tempered, ill-mannered with X. Meanwhile, with G or Greta is, you know, he's all rainbows and unicorns with that bitch, okay? You got a favorite child versus a definitely not favorite child kind of dynamic here. All right, then we're going to the South Sands for section 3. Say that 4 times fast, which is the shortest section, by the way. It is 356 words only. So if you're looking for the least amount of commitment that you could make to this whole exchange, go watch that video. It's the shortest one. All right. The things you're supposed to get out of this section are 2 main points. One is that this is an area that is paranoid and isolated. That's not the second point, but the first point is the vibe of the South Sands is they're very paranoid about everything and they're very isolated. The second thing that you're supposed to get from this section is that the big theme here is they have to nominate their daughters for marriage because the Alsaba are the only people who can procreate with the humans, and so they've set up this system whereby they have to nominate every 4 years 2 girls from every kingdom to send out to the World Fair to get fucking sold to basically the highest bidder. Okay, section 4, you're going to the forest now. It is the second shortest section of chapter 1, and the important things to note here are that the forest just took over the last kingdom that they actually care about. You're going to find out more about this in a couple of chapters, but the other main things, you're getting Alex is the mastermind, Rick is the muscle, and the Kirali is essentially a figurehead. That's all you're supposed to learn right here in this section. More to come. Okay, and then section 5 is the last section, and it's all about the sea. It's also the second longest section. It is 1,702 words. So what you're supposed to learn here are 3 main things. One is that the sea is essentially a European monarchy. It's supposed to give you that feel, right? Princess Fatum the 23rd, who is the granddaughter, and she has her big coming out at the World Fair. We're obviously building towards the World Fair, people. Everyone is talking about the fair. They're gonna go to the fair. That's what we're gonna do. Okay. Now, the second thing that gets explained in detail in this chapter is the importance of human blood. In the sea, you have the royalty, and as you learn, they sort of right time, right place themselves into royalty. And so you have the Fatum family in the sea that is royalty, and the Hope family that you have not met yet, but it is alluded to on the Isle of the Gods. And these 2 families are sort of royal neogenes families. And then essentially under them in the social hierarchy is anyone with a lot of human blood, okay? If you have 92% human blood, you are gonna get better matches, and it's not explicitly said in there, but better matches, as was the case in Europe for a long time, better matches mean that you combine more wealth and you have more opportunity and just life is better. If you've got more human blood, that's the vibe you're supposed to get. The third thing is you obviously get introduced to Love, our little underdog hero kind of character, so we're gonna follow along with him. And side note, you know, are you getting any like romantic vibes between the princess and Love? Because you should, because that's part of it's like a little love story. It's a little love story situation happening there. Okay, finally, you have overarching chapter themes, okay? Hierarchies, you're getting a feel for the fact that humans are at the top of the food chain, and then it goes down to Noski, and in the middle there, depending on your perspective and your kingdom, you will come to learn. You have neogenes of varying degrees of human blood. You have the mortadels mixed in there, depending upon if you're an Abrahamite, and that means that you like the mortadels or you don't. You think mortadels are junk because they can't have children and continue the bloodline. Those are all somewhere in the middle. And then the Alsaba, although the girls are lauded because their wombs are something that the humans want, what about the boys? They're pretty low on the totem pole. And even the Alsaba, you could make the argument that like, okay, but you just get like sold off. You're almost lower than the Noski because you're basically enslaved. So, those are the kinds of things you're supposed to be thinking about. And then just to recap, who rules these kingdoms? So on the Isle, you have the oracles making all the decisions. Those are the humans. Those equal gods, depending on, again, what kingdom, what lens you're looking at them through. Then you have the sands. We don't know who really controls the sands yet. We've met Sistenin, but we don't really know what her role is. And then you have the forest. That's the Kirali figurehead, but he is a king. And Alex. And what are they? We don't know. Are they Noskis? Are they Neogenes? Are they humans? Probably not, but we don't know. Okay. And then lastly, you have the sea. And of course, that's where Queen Fatum and her family is in charge. So that's the recap of what you should know for chapter 1. In another video, I'm going to go over like the undercover things, the insinuations, the questions that if you're a real astute listener or reader, you should be asking yourself. Things that are hints, foreshadowings, okay? I'm going to go over that next in a different video. Yeah.